My question on the Investment Canada Act is the same for all the witnesses. And we heard previous testimony to the effect that the policy guidance in mid-April that was issued by the minister's office effectively says there's going to be greater scrutiny on state-owned or companies that are associated with authoritarian regimes, and so there will be there is currently additional scrutiny should those acquisitions be proposed. We heard some witness testimony though that rather than that policy direction, there ought to be firmer guidance with greater specificity. And out of all of the witness testimony, that seems to be a recommendation that is reasonable. And I wonder, starting with Mr. Wakil, if that's something that you would think we ought to support.
Yeah, thanks for the question. It is something that I think we should support. I should say, by way of additional background, that I think the government has over the years done a good job in trying to increase the transparency around national security reviews under the Investment Canada Act. The annual report that the Investment Review Division issues is a valuable source of information to members of the bar and to foreign investors and Canadian businesses seeking foreign investment with respect to statistical information about the types of national securities that have been undertaken, the outcomes of the reviews, the remedies, the timelines. There are also guidelines on national security reviews that are also helpful. Where I think, but as I said in my opening remarks, I do think additional guidance would be necessary. Investors in Canadian businesses don't mind having rules, but they like to have as much certainty about the rules as possible. And where I think additional guidelines and guidance rather may be helpful is case-specific guidance to the extent that that's possible. Now, sometimes these national security reviews, by their very nature, inhibit the disclosure of information that may be valuable. But I think there is additional guidance that the government could give as it obtains additional experience with national security reviews in case-specific situations. More information about the industry that was of interest to the government, more information about the outcomes of the review.
And Mr. Crane?
Thank you very much. I agree with Mr. Wakil that the government has done a good job increasing transparency, particularly through the annual report. In my experience, however, investors are told very little about what a specific national security concern their investments raise, and they're not actually told anything until the 90th day of a review. And even then, they're just given a summary statement of a couple of sentences at a pretty generic level and then asked to make representations or respond. And there's no formal process by which investors are given a thorough explanation of the national security concern, nor are they given specific guidance necessarily about the types of measures that they could take to address those concerns.
So then, knowing that businesses, as Mr. Wakil says, business depends upon certainty for investment. Right. And so ensuring that the policy direction, which I think is the right policy direction as far as it goes, that was issued in mid-April, ensuring that they are translated into more fulsome guidelines with greater specificity, that is something that you would support.
Absolutely. And even during the case-specific process, additional transparency measures would help so that the investors know whether, the outcome is looking promising or the outcome is just not going to work in their favor. And to drag investors through a 200-day process only to tell them, I'm sorry, but we can't work things out, doesn't necessarily send the best message to the investment community.
And Jim, do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, I'll just echo what I said in my comments. We have a decades outdated framework for this that doesn't bear any relationship to the economic and security structures of the contemporary economy. And every thoughtful nation has long updated their approaches to this. And even the US right now is going through 8 distinct and broad sectors to list the various technologies and companies and how they're going to review it. And so no, we're woefully out of date, and our framework does not apply to the issues at hand for the contemporary economy.
I see our chairs put up the yellow card, and so as I run out of time, I love all of my colleagues, but Bobby Morrissey, I miss you most of all, so it's good to see you on the line.